Welcome in on a Wednesday, February 16th, 3304 Daily. Good to have you aboard here. Got a lot planned for this hour of talk. A lot of NFL today. I know it's the offseason. We are 3 days into the offseason, but we're still trying to find some stuff to talk about. So we're going to throw a lot of NFL your way, a lot of early offseason news. No Ryan Wilkes today in the producer's chair, but we have Colby Bergstrom, Colby Talley, and Brian Kearney back. Typical Wednesday show. So here we go. Let's get started. Actually, I kind of want to start a little bit off plan. Did any of y'all tune into some of the... It was a pretty decent college basketball slate last night. I was coming back to my apartment from work. Just got done with my first day over at New River Radio. And I was checking the ACC scores. And I was seeing Duke and Wake Forest, which I thought was going to be a pretty good game. They went really down to the wire. And a little bit of controversy, potential offensive interference on the last second putback by Duke. I thought it was offensive interference, but I mean, it's Duke, it's Cameron. They're not going to call that. But then 0.4 seconds left. I literally was just sitting in the parking lot. I was like, all right, no way Wake comes. No, obviously, Wake's done. Let me just check out the end of the game. Maybe the app is on a delay. I turn it on. Literally, this is the only play I see from the game. It's LaRavia running the baseline, gives it up to the guy. I forgot who took the shot. Just 70-footer, like, from the other free throw line, catches it, goes over his right shoulder, and banks it, hits off the front of the rim. I don't know if you saw this. If this went in, this may have been the greatest basketball shot of all time. If it was 2 inches to the right, not even 2, maybe like a half inch more to the right, it would have banked off the glass and went in, and Wake would have walked out of there with a dub. So that was incredible. And then I dedicated another, like, hour to the second half of Villanova Providence, which is a top 10 matchup, Big East, two like small schools that are usually pretty good at basketball. So I wanted to check that out. Disappointed in Providence. I had no idea that they were doing as well as they had this season with only 2 losses. But Colin Gillespie went off last night. He dropped like 31 on them. Yeah, and then I went into the advanced stats, and the reason Providence has been as good as they have been, they're the luckiest team in the nation according to KenPom. So they might be a bit of a paper tiger, and watching that game, Providence, they don't run offense. That's what jumped out to me. They don't run offensive sets. They kind of just put their head down, drive to the basket, throw something up, hope to get fouled, or they rely too heavily on getting offensive rebounds, which they can do. So wasn't very impressed in the Friars. The other thing, too, is how in the world was Wyoming not on TV last night? I'm pretty sure they lost that game, too, against New Mexico on the road. Yeah, they did, by 9. Jalen House for New Mexico dropped 34. I mean, Wyoming has had a tremendous season. The Mountain West has been really, really strong. And Ike, their number 1 scorer, he's like playing really dominant basketball. I don't know how Wyoming is not on TV. But I digress. I mean, that's just for college basketball junkies. So that's kind of where I wanted to start off the show today. Judging by the faces that I'm seeing here, I'm presuming that none of you caught any of that basketball action I was talking about. Kind of just flying over everyone's heads right now. But I don't know. I thought it was just an interesting way to start off the show, telling you guys what I did last night. But I digress. We can move on. We can talk a little bit NFL. So I wanted to start out with this. I was on my way to my job, and I was listening back to my hometown station back in Detroit. And now, naturally, Detroit, the Super Bowl, all the storylines going into it with that city, in the focus. And the fact that you look at the market share, Detroit was the second biggest city in terms of market share for the Super Bowl, right behind Cincinnati. Obviously, the whole Stafford parallel is a thing. But I'm listening to the highest rated show in the city, one of the highest rated radio sports talk shows in the country, and they filled a full 4 hours just talking about, hey, is Matthew Stafford a Hall of Famer? And I'm just thinking to myself how insane that is, that they are able to fill 4 hours of radio, 4 hours of talking, because people are willing to listen to a topic that's about a guy that left their team and just won a Super Bowl for another city. And I don't know if that's just a Detroit thing in specific, but it speaks to just how just absurdly popular the NFL is. I'm thinking to myself, okay, if you're in Detroit, you have a lot of things you can talk about. You can talk about the Wings. You can talk about the Pistons. They're both playing right now, even though they're not doing too great. You talk about MLB. You can talk about the fact that the lockout's going on, how that impacts the Tigers. You have two major college programs in that market, but they filled 4 hours talking about, is Matthew Stafford a Hall of Famer now, or has he ever been? And they had conversations. They brought on callers and whatnot. And that's not where I want to take this topic. Is Matthew Stafford Hall of Famer? But just, does that surprise any of you that so much about, whether it's local, whether it's national, whether it's First Take, whether it's Colin Cowherd, any of those big name programs, those sports talk programs, they talk about the NFL so much. And I wanted to bring this up with Ryan, because I know we've been talking about this the last couple of weeks, bringing up this topic. When they go on First Take, and you got Stephen A. Smith, like, only talking about Giannis and the Bucks, or they're only talking about the Lakers and the Warriors, but they're not giving credit to teams like the Bulls. They're not giving the Heat or the Cavs their due, even though they're having tremendous seasons at the top of the Eastern Conference. They're not really talking about the Suns. And we talked about this. When you talk about the NFL, obviously the NFL drives ratings, and when you look at the fact that over 110 million people watch the Super Bowl, it doesn't come as a surprise that, hey, to keep the lights on, these guys are going to talk about what's popular. But just, does it surprise any of you? I mean, I'm just thinking about that. Think about what I'm talking about here. They're talking about the NFL in a city that did not have a good NFL season. They're talking about a former player, and they filled 4 hours just talking about, hey, is this guy a Hall of Famer? I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. I don't know if this is as big as a topic as I'm trying to make it out to be, but, I mean, maybe there's a parallel here. I don't know what you guys think. Colbjorn, you're our co-host for the day, so why don't you start us off?
I'm going to say it like this. As you let off here at the top of the show, what did you say that we're going to be talking about here for most of this episode of 3034 Radio?
We're talking a lot of NFL today.
Exactly. The NFL is just a very polarizing topic amongst a lot of Americans here. I think if you want to specifically put it into the Detroit angle, think of it like this: Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson, two of the best footballers of their generation, couldn't escape Detroit. Calvin Johnson had to retire because they're never going to get rid of him, and Barry Sanders also retired after just 10 years in the NFL. And I believe his last season, or it was his second to last season, he got the MVP. So those are two of some of the best talents that we've seen in the NFL never be able to win a Super Bowl and really do nothing in the playoffs. So now fast forward all these years, and now Matthew Stafford was able to escape. In the first year that he escapes, he goes and wins the Super Bowl. And it's someone that we've kind of touted as just in and around that top 10 quarterback conversation for a long time. And now he's finally able to do it with someone that we consider one of the best NFL minds of today. So to me, of course that they're going to talk about it a lot. I mean, it's talked about everywhere. You talked about it. First Take, they talk about it. I would not be surprised if Colin Cowherd talked about it. Just about everybody has been talking about the conversation that was pitched of, is Matthew Stafford Hall of Famer. And I don't think that we really have to necessarily get into that part, but I think that just kind of shows how polarizing in a sense the NFL can be. There's so many angles you can go about it. There's so many ways that you can kind of spin things, and there's been a lot of pride, almost as people know, I'm a very big football or soccer fan, kind of like how England is with their teams. You'll have people debate, the whole time of how Manchester United is this, or how Liverpool's that, or why this year is this year's for Southampton to go and win the championship, the Premier League. You'll have all these things that are talked about, and it's going to be consistently talked about in England because it's the popular, most polarizing thing there. That's what it is here in America, and that's why the NFL is talked about so much.
Well,
yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I would agree with that for the most part. I think also part of it is Detroit has not been blessed with very good sports teams on the whole. So I think they're using like you said, a very popular topic in the NFL, and then you have someone like Matthew Stafford, who was their QB for forever, to go off in the first year he leaves, he goes and wins a Super Bowl. So I think it's timing for the most part, but I think it's NFL has that ability to, like you said, just be polarizing, and then you take something like Detroit with a QB like that and then leave, I think you kind of set yourself up for like the perfect story to just continuously talk about them and get a bunch of perspectives, and that's probably the main thing that happened.
Well, I mean, and let me just say this here. Let me put a little bit of a local spin on it. Maybe not the most local, but like, just think about let's think about some DC sports right now. The Nationals, they've got two of their more premier players in the news right now. Ryan Zimmerman just announced his retirement, and then Juan Soto reportedly just turned down a $300 million contract. Now, I'm not saying that DC sports radio, sports talk won't talk about those things, but I'm just saying it's incredible to me that a major sport like that won't pull as much of a rating share as, say, hey, let's just talk about the Commanders for 2 hours. Like, not as many people will tune in to listen to people talk about baseball than football. I know that that's just kind of an obvious statement here, and maybe we're not even drawing a real conclusion at this point, but just, it's amazing to me how far the NFL is ahead. And I think that there's something that I can bring up a little bit later on the show, because I want to end today with a quick look at the MLB lockout and another update, because, I mean, we're supposed to be in pitchers and catchers reporting. So there's something about the NFL that I think I can tie into that MLB topic to end our show today. But for now, I was a little just flabbergasted. I mean, and again, with sports or with leagues like the NBA and the NHL, if you're going on radio and you're saying, hey, the Pistons aren't doing anything this year, so they're not really that interesting. And same with the Red Wings. And that's just kind of how these other sports have turned into. They don't have the game-to-game following that the NFL does. They don't have where you watch it on Sunday and then you can talk about it on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They have games during the week. You're not going to talk about each individual game the next day. And I think that's just a leg up that the NFL has. I mean, their branding is just so much better than everyone else's. Colby, do you have any thoughts on this?
I'm not sure I do. I mean, I just agree with what everyone else says. I'm sorry.
No. You're good. No, I get it. It's kind of just something that I'm bringing up. Just why is the NFL so popular? I know that's kind of what the whole thing just kind of revolves around, where it's not necessarily about the topic of, being in a city and saying, hey, this former player that used to play for us just won a Super Bowl somewhere else. Maybe this is only a Detroit thing. I don't know. Doesn't surprise me that Detroit radio was able to fill as much time as they did just bringing up the Matthew Stafford topic, because, I mean, Brian said it. Matthew Stafford was there for forever. And it's not like they have anything else that's too great going on down there right now. As a Detroit fan, I am definitely experienced in that. Not a Lions fan, but, I digress. No, it's just kind of a nothing question at this point. Why is the NFL so popular? I don't know if we have an answer. Football has just kind of become that thing. And, you go back into it. NFL is number one. Right behind that, honestly, is college football. Like, football in America is just it. The NBA isn't as popular as college football. Neither is Major League Baseball. In the South, it's pretty much number one. Like, college football in the South is number one to the NFL. So the question just comes back to, why is the NFL so much why is the NFL so much more popular, and why can it feed more time? It's just because people like it. And I don't know. It was just surprising to me, because it's like, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to be better than that. We're trying to, and I know today's a horrible example because we're just trying to fill an hour of radio with, we're only talking about NFL stuff. But we want to do things where, especially as college students and college writers and reporters and broadcasters, we want to do something where we're not just talking about, okay, Virginia Tech football every single day, Virginia Tech men's basketball. Like, we want to make sure that we are trying to give the other sports their due. We want to give baseball and softball their credit, wrestling their credit, women's basketball their credit. Those Olympic sports. We want to try to do better in those areas, but at the same time, we know that national people aren't going to do that, because for whatever reason, the NFL and just football in general has so much more pull. All right. I think this is a good place to turn topics now. All right, Colbjorn, you are our co-host for the day. You have a little bit of a quarterback, let me call it a plethora, or a smorgasbord. I think that's a good one. Quarterback smorgasbord of conversation topics. So I'm going to hand it over to you. What do you got for us?
I guess we can start off here with something that I found interesting. there was a tweet from NFL and CBS that talked about something that I found very interesting, which is now this may not be surprising for the most recent Super Bowl quarterbacks, but at the last 16 quarterbacks that have lost the Super Bowl have not returned to the Super Bowl, or at least they have not yet, because that of course includes Patrick Mahomes and then even someone as underrated as Matt Ryan and whatnot. So I think the question that was posed by NFL and CBS is, will Joe Burrow break, or they said buck, this very extensive trend? And that's kind of what I wanted to pose, because I think it's a good question. Will and can Burrow break the trend? Or on top of that, is he going to be the first to break the trend? Or is it going to be someone like Patrick Mahomes or, Matt Ryan, or maybe even Jared Goff or Jimmy Garoppolo somehow?
Well, your last two, that they just don't make as much sense to me. Well, actually, the Jimmy G thing, the fact is, because we brought this number up a while ago. I want to say right after the NFC Championship game. We were so close. I think there was only like 3 quarterbacks that have ever made it back to the Super Bowl after losing it. We were this close. We were a Jaquiski Tartt dropped ball away from Jimmy Garoppolo being one of 4 quarterbacks all time from doing it, which I think is just like Peyton Manning. I think Favre did it once, and then there's one other guy that I don't remember. But yeah, it's a very exclusive group. So now it's not just, okay, how many first-time quarterbacks made it to the Super Bowl and now they get it back? There's a small portion of people that make the Super Bowl, lose it, and then come back. So you're talking about a narrow window. With how early it is in Joe Burrow's career, it is very early to make a succinct declaration, but I'm gonna try to, because it's not fun if you just go on and say, "Oh, let's see how it plays out." No, that's not what we're trying to do here. The thing with Joe Burrow to me is that obviously the AFC quarterbacks around him make it that much more difficult for him to routinely get back. He's gonna have to play at a super high level and constantly be above guys like Mahomes, Allen, Herbert, year over year over year. And I'm not saying he can't do that. I'm just saying it'd be very difficult, and at the end of the day, he would walk away as one of the best quarterbacks of all time. Which he still could. He still could end up having a really long Hall of Fame career where he's just, there are a bunch of other guys, but no one can get past him. He could be like the Tom Brady of the AFC moving forward. But I honestly, and maybe this is just me hoping, I hope the AFC is just a little bit more, has a little bit more parity. Like, I want there to be a year where Josh Allen breaks through, and then Justin Herbert breaks through, Lamar breaks through finally. Obviously, and then like guys like Burrow and Mahomes, they can have their second chances or third chances at Super Bowls. And, at the end of the day, out of that grouping, you're looking at Mahomes has 3 Super Bowl appearances, Allen has 2, Burrow has 3, Herbert has 1, Lamar has 1. All of the quarterbacks that are in play right now, it makes it that much more difficult for Burrow to get back. I will say, as of right now, I think that Burrow and the Bengals have the best chance to be that number 1 team in the AFC for the next 2 years. It probably, for me, would be them and Buffalo. Kansas City has a little bit of maneuvering that they have to do. Now, out of those 3, I think Mahomes is the best quarterback, so I think that gives them good positioning. But with Cincinnati, all you really have to do, fix that offensive line. And you take one good offseason, pour as many resources into that offensive line as you can, and you just do little tweaks to your depth in the roster. You have an above-average offensive line. You already have a really good quarterback. You have a top 3 wide receiver core in the NFL. You've got a good running back. Maybe get a number 2 behind Mixon. And then your defense is solid. Your defense is pretty good, and you made some nice moves in the offseason in acquiring better defensive pieces. Load up on the offensive line and then get some defensive depth. I think that the Bengals for the next 2 seasons, that roster becomes top in the AFC, and that gives them the best chance to get back there. After that, and when you have to start paying all your guys, and you have to make some decisions, that might make it a little bit more difficult for Burrow. So if he is going to get back, I think that they have to do whatever they can to attack it in this next 2-year window. For his entire career, let's say he plays 12 years, do I think he makes it to 2 more Super Bowls? I'm going to say no. Do I think he makes it to 1 more Super Bowl? I'll go with yes. And I'm just playing the numbers there. Emotionally, I would think that he could definitely elevate Cincinnati to multiple Super Bowls in the next decade, but just playing the numbers and seeing the competition around him, I only have to go with, yeah, he'll make it back, but he might only get one more shot at this.
Yeah, I mean, I will say with the CBS image, a little bit of a tweak to it is it wasn't necessarily losing losing quarterbacks in general. So that's where Mahomes isn't in this. It's actually quarterbacks that lost their Super Bowl debut, because I actually looked more into it, and actually, ironically, this list also includes names that we may not have expected, or at least I didn't expect when I looked at it, like Kaepernick's on the list, Rex Grossman's on the list, Matt Hasselbeck's on the list, Drew Bledsoe and Kerry Collins, like just some really interesting names there, not guys that I would have.
And that's the thing too. I mean, Burrow is above those guys. Like, if you listed out all those guys, and I know you mentioned Matt Ryan, I have never been a Matt Ryan guy. I think his MVP season is a total Kyle Shanahan fluke, but I don't want to argue about that. Burrow, to me, is already the number one guy on that list. So, from that perspective, it makes his path back to a Super Bowl a lot easier. Again, he's going to have to constantly be that guy that is being better than Mahomes, being better than Allen. And honestly, he was really, really good this season. He was a top 5 quarterback. Was he better than Mahomes or Allen? In stretches, I would say that Mahomes and Allen are definitely the 2 best quarterbacks in the league, but Burrow produced enough to be a part of the conversation.
Yeah.
So I think that's where it falls. And let's go back to Matt Stafford real quick. I know that when Richard Sherman brought up the Matt Stafford Hall of Fame argument, he brought up the All-Pro team. And Jason McIntyre went on and said, well, yeah, he's playing in the era of Rodgers and Manning and Brady, and how do you expect him to get above that? And then someone shot back, okay, yeah, that's his whole point. He wasn't able to elevate himself above that. Matt Stafford, over the past decade, probably, I would say without a doubt, top 10 quarterback in the league. Burrow is going to have to be better than that to give the Bengals multiple shots. He's going to have to elevate himself above his peers in order to give the Bengals those shots, something that Stafford wasn't able to do. And obviously, Lions, all that, it's a thing, but just pinpointing his own greatness and his ability to get Cincinnati back to that spot to win a championship, he'll have to do something that Stafford couldn't do and elevate himself above the other greats that he's playing with. Brian, Colby, before we move on here, do you guys have any quick thoughts on these?
I mean, in my opinion, without a doubt, is he going to be back? It's only his second season. Like you said, that the Bengals team is still really good, but even if he, for whatever reason, can't get back in the next 2 years, which I think he can, with the likes of Chase and Higgins and everything on that Bengals team, I think without question he'll be back. Yeah, you have Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, who both he'll have to compete with, and I'm not saying that Burrow will be back every year, but I think he has a lot of potential. He's brought a lot of life to that Bengals team, and I think without a doubt he'll be back.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that Joe Burrow is a great quarterback. I mean, he will probably be back. The one thing that I'm worried about is the Cincinnati's front office, because even with acknowledging that the Ja'Marr Chase pick did end up working out for them really well, Ja'Marr Chase is a great player, but picking wide receiver over offensive line still seems like a short-sighted decision to me. Like, that's what I was saying. Like, I thought they should have taken Sewell in the draft. And the fact that their offensive line is basically the thing that lost them the game just a few nights ago. I really hope that this front office can fill in some of those gaps in the roster. But I just don't know. Something about the Bengals front office and some of the decisions they tend to make just makes me a little worried.
Well, I mean, the Sewell and Chase meme really happened. Like, in the Super Bowl, that was something that people were posting on Twitter that I found funny. Like, if you have Ja'Marr Chase, Burrow's just going to get stuffed. And then if you got Sewell there, he's not going to get stuffed and maybe find someone like Higgins or something. I thought that was a funny meme, but yeah, I think we're all in consensus that he'll get back at least one more time. I personally think multiple, but that's me. Are you wanting me to throw out the other quarterback topic here, Dan?
Yeah, let's go with that. But also, I am seeing that part of your question was who would break it first, most likely now between Mahomes and Burrow. At the end of the day, I think that this is what I want to happen is, again, I want it to be kind of an even split. among those 5 guys that we keep mentioning. We need to see Justin Herbert in the playoffs, man. Like, we need to see that happen eventually one of these days, and we need to see Lamar and that offense. We need to see that passing offense finally develop to the point where we can see him winning more playoff games, getting to a Super Bowl, and then obviously we need to see Josh Allen break through here eventually. Because the fact that Burrow did it in just really his first full year starting, it's just insane. But no, so who's most likely to break it first? I'm just going to go Mahomes because I think that he is the best quarterback in the NFL. I think what they need to just figure out is how can we take the easy stuff. If they can get a better running game, that can help. But overall, I think they just try too hard to push the ball down the field. Sometimes they're killing people when they do the underneath stuff, and then when they're up big, like we saw against Cincinnati, they go away from it, or they just they get a little bit too one-dimensional and a little bit too loose. And I think once they tighten those up, I think the Chiefs and Mahomes can really take that next step forward to getting back to the Super Bowl and not cratering as a franchise.
I'd love to see how they get back, obviously. The other thing that you want me to pose as well, and I'll pose real quick, is that one of the biggest things that's going to be happening this offseason that I think is going to be talked about almost daily is this quarterback carousel that's going to be going on via trades and via free agency. So since free agency, there's so many guys, so let's not even worry about that. Let's just talk. What I wanted to pitch was, do they stay or do they go? And then maybe the team that you guys like them for. This list of names includes Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins, Carson Wentz, Jimmy Garoppolo, Baker Mayfield. So that's 7 quarterbacks that have been talked about by national media that might possibly be going from their teams this year, whether via trade or for maybe 1 or 2 they could possibly get cut and then hit free agency.
So where do you want me to start here? Do you want to go through one name at a time?
I mean, honestly, that's actually probably how we should do it. We should probably just all go through one name at a time, and
all right. So then, where do you want me to start?
Start at the top of that list, Deshaun Watson.
All right, the Watson case obviously is unique because it's not just a player not liking his situation. These GMs are going to have to do their homework and know whether or not he's going to have to serve jail time, whether the NFL is planning on suspending him. From what I've heard, or at least from what I have seen, because I don't have sources, probably the number one name right now for him is the Buccaneers. I don't think he plays for the Texans at all next season. I honestly think that even if he's still on the roster, they're just going to be okay with starting Davis Mills, who had a surprisingly good rookie season. I think he came out with 2 names yesterday, the Buccaneers and the Vikings. I think the Buccaneers would be the franchise to make the move there. I think that the culture that they started to develop with Arians and that Tom Brady, that championship winning mentality that they put into a franchise that now is just, before Tom Brady, they won a Super Bowl, but Tampa Bay was never really thought of as a serious organization. Now they kind of are. I think that they can undertake the Deshaun Watson deal, and I think that would be his most likely place to go.
Yeah, obviously Vikings and Buccaneers were noted yesterday. He's definitely going to go soon. I think from what we've seen, I think some of the cases have actually started to get dropped, if I remember right, but that was like a while ago, so I don't fully remember when that news got broke. I think it may have been like a month ago. But I would also even say among that list, though I do think that probably the Buccaneers would be the most likely now, particularly if they are interested. I still wouldn't count out Denver. Because if they don't get Aaron Rodgers, if Aaron Rodgers possibly stays in Green Bay, they're not only in for Deshaun Watson, but I think that's a team that's a quarterback away from being able to be competitive in the playoffs, and a little bit of defensive depth now. But yeah, I think that Watson is for sure gone. I think he's for sure gone this offseason.
So where's the place he goes? Let's not just play the game where is he gone or does he stay? Let's play if he goes, where's he going?
Buccaneers. I think the Buccaneers are still going to try and invest in that team, and Watson's relatively young, so it'd be a very solid investment by them.
Brian, Colby, do you guys have any quick thoughts on these? We're going to go through all these names. We might as well go around the horn on it.
Well, I'm just going to preface this by saying that if any one of those cases ends up being true, Deshaun Watson should not be playing any more NFL football, and anyone who I feel like it's still a very weird situation to talk about because anyone who trades for him is banking on him being completely absolved of any guilt in these regards or settling these cases in some way, which is kind of disgusting to think about personally. But I feel like I would agree that that he is gone this offseason, be it cutting, be it trading. I find it unlikely he's going to get traded anytime soon. But if I had to say where he'd be traded, I would agree. The Buccaneers seem like a prime option. They're in need of a quarterback. And I never liked the idea of him going to the Dolphins. I feel like the Dolphins still have some relative amount of faith in Tua to make that deal.
Yeah, I'm pretty much with you guys. I got nothing more really to add. Buccaneers would have been my first go-to.
All right, yeah. I mean, I don't know much about the Tua situation anymore, particularly with what Mike McDaniel's has been saying. But swinging it, then let's talk about Rodgers then.
I think I almost just killed our listeners' ears by turning up my mic. I think, well, first of all, I had to Google Aaron Rodgers' name, and oh no, breaking news! Him and Shailene Woodley have apparently broken off their engagement. Oh no, so sad. I think there's only one name. I think it all comes down to Denver. The Nathaniel Hackett hire. I know that, what's coming out of Green Bay is that, oh yeah, relationship is getting a little bit better, but I think it all spurs from the fact that Davante Adams is 100% gone. I really think so, and I think he's going to Vegas. I think he goes to reunite with Derek Carr, and with that, I mean, Rodgers already hates every other wide receiver, considering the fact that he doesn't throw to him. So I think Denver is the obvious choice.
I remember it was something that was talked about, I think, a couple weeks ago, where Rodgers is like, wherever I end up, I want to be with Adams and Lazard. I think that was what he said. Was that Lazard or was MVS? But I'm pretty sure it was Lazard. I think Lazard's a free agent. I think most likely he's gone, just because he won the MVP back to back, and neither of those years resulted in him getting into the Super Bowl. He hasn't reached the Super Bowl since he won it. And obviously Green Bay just hasn't invested in him. So he should be done with it. At least he should feel done. Not to really try to tell him how to feel here, but I think that means he should go. Where? I think Denver's probably the most likely landing spot from what we heard last year. But I also think that though we'll talk about this quarterback as well. I think the other team that could really be in there is Indianapolis. They do have a really strong relationship with not only some of the people there, in the team and outside the team, with that being like Pat McAfee and some of the players. But then on top of that, I just think that Indianapolis is a team that is built for someone like Aaron Rodgers. And not only that, they also have the cap space to go and try to snag Davante Adams or Lazard or something and just build a good team for him.
No, I mean, all right, yeah. Let's just move on through the names. I want to get to a break here shortly, so why don't we just go through the rest of these and let's just give, stay go team name. Let's maybe not try to be as analytical here for the rest of this list.
All right, Russ Wilson.
I think he's gone. I think Seattle has to blow it up. Trade to, I'll go with Washington. They seem like a hot name right now.
I think he's gone as well, and I'm actually going to double down there with you with Washington.
Guys behind the glass, we can go quickly on this. So I mean, if you guys want to just throw a team name out there, I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah, I'd say gone as well, and then maybe the Bucks. Maybe they need someone, so perhaps him.
I know he's gone, but I can't say for sure who he goes to. I'd have to think about that a little bit.
Sure. Well, then how about a team that's in a rebuilding scenario, Kirk in Minnesota?
I think he has to stay. I really don't know how they move off him. I think he just ends up staying. I don't think they're happy with it, but I think that they just run out of options.
I'm gonna say he's gone. I have a scenario. He's gonna be flipped for one of these quarterbacks and with a longer extension, or he's gonna go to this team, which is Pittsburgh. I just think that Pittsburgh could be a nice place for him.
Believe me, Colborne, I would take Kirk Cousins in a heartbeat as a Steelers fan, but we're going with my brain here. I think he stays. I'm gonna agree with Dan here. He's just their safest option.
Yeah, my gut says he stays.
How about Mr. Red Rifle himself, Carson Wentz?
Your boy getting cut. That's what happens. That's what's happening with him. But where he goes, honestly, you know what? I think Steelers double down. I think they sign him as a safe option, and then they go out and draft someone as well. So they pull a Jalen Hurts on him.
It does seem like the situation is souring with Indy, but I'm still going to stick with my guns and say he stays. I don't think he had a god-awful season. And on top of that, worst comes to worst, if he doesn't work out next year, that's the last year of his contract, and then you can just move him on and go and get someone better.
Yeah, I got to go with Colbjorn here. I mean, their offensive coordinator just took a job with, I believe, the Bears. I mean, I feel like they're going to go under the guise of, oh, we're getting a new offensive coordinator. We're going to give him one more shot with another guy calling the plays. But I don't know if it's going to work out like that. But I do think he stays at least one more year.
Yeah, I think he stays as well. Maybe they try and find a backup just in case.
I believe Indianapolis's offensive coordinator is still there. I know who you're referring to. You're referring to our defensive coordinator, Matt Eberflus.
I was absolutely wrong. You are correct.
you were referring to Eberflus, but yeah, no, we had a coordinator gone, but I think they have faith in him. Jimmy G though with San Fran talking about that he wants out too.
That's a tough one because I'm basically filling in all the other holes of every other team that needs a quarterback. So I'm looking at his odds list, and obviously the top names: Buccaneers, Steelers. I've already filled those two. So let me just go out on a limb here. For some reason, I have no idea why the Panthers are fourth best odds on his list, so I'm going to go with them. It would make no sense to me, San Francisco trading him to Carolina. I don't know what the exchange would be there, but, I don't know. Maybe Carolina gets desperate.
You know what? I actually am going to completely double down with you with going to Carolina, but here's the reason why I'm going to. I think that could lead to Carolina trading down the drafts and drafting a quarterback here in the first round, and then they could let that guy sit a year behind Jimmy G as his contract expires. So he's out of there to Carolina.
I'm actually going to disagree and say he stays.
Ooh, okay, I like that a little bit. Okay, I know we said no elaboration, but you're not on the Trey Lance train?
I mean, I am, but I think there's a possibility that after this season they did a lot better than a lot of people expected, and I think there's a chance that they maybe give him one more shot. I mean, I certainly don't disagree with you guys and say that he won't leave and they kick it over to Trey Lance. I definitely can see that happening, but I'm going to go out on a limb and just say they're happy with this year and they're going to try and repeat.
All right. Well, then for the last one, just need to make sure on it. Yes, it's going to be Baker Mayfield in Cleveland. Situation possibly souring there from what we've heard.
Stays. I don't think they have a real option to move off him, although he might just be benched at some point in the season.
Not only do I agree with you, Dan, but on top of that, I think Baker Mayfield's given a little bit too much criticism, just a little bit. Not that he's great or anything, but the fact that he was banged up last year and played through the whole season. I think he's a decent enough quarterback. I think he can lead this team to the playoffs. It's just going to be a functionality of what happens after this year.
I think he's a good quarterback, but I think the issue that Cleveland is starting to see is that he's kind of hit his ceiling in a way. Like, there's not much. I mean, he did play through an injury, but even without that injury, there's just not much evidence that he's going to take massive strides in the future. So I'm just going to leave that there. I don't know if he stays or goes, honestly.
Yeah, I'm coming with Colby as well, but I'm gonna throw out that he stays.
All right, Colby, there it is. Thank you for that. We're gonna take a quick break. On the other side of that break, Colby Talese is bringing us a little bit of NFL coaching news. Stick with us. You're listening to 3304 Daily.
Big Monday is back in Blacksburg as the Virginia Cavaliers travel to Castle Coliseum for Commonwealth Clash 2.0 to face off against the Virginia Tech Hokies. And now look how loud it is here in Blacksburg. Just take a minute to take it all in here on 3304 Sports. Murphy over now to Aluma on the right wing. Hands it off to Naheem Aline, who pump fakes now back out to the logo. Over to Keve Aluma with 3 seconds to shoot. He puts it up from the baseline for two and sinks it. Nothing but net for Keve Aluma, and the Hokies strike first here in Blacksburg. It's 2-0 Virginia Tech. top of the key, Aluma nearly had it stolen away. Now over to Mutz, who hands it off to Darius Maddox, right baseline, 3, swish! Hokies have a lead. It's a 1-point advantage for Virginia Tech. It's a cutting Maddox, left wing. Over now up top to Keve Aluma. Thought about a 3, he's not going to take it. Will drive down low with 7 seconds to shoot. 22 in maroon, puts it up for 2 and gets it to go. Hokies once again retake the lead back and forth here in Blacksburg early on. It's 9-8 Virginia Tech. 15 seconds to shoot, now over to Poindexter, working on Sean Padula, pulls it back out with 8 seconds to shoot. Hokies defense is swarming tonight. Armand Franklin drives in low, pulls up from the free throw line, and gets a runner to go. Reese Beekman, top of the key, gets a screen from Gardner, now over to the East Carolina transfer from the right block, pulls up for 2, nothing but nylon. Murphy now on the right wing, tries an open 3, that's money from downtown. Hokies are within 2, 18-16 Virginia with 6:55 to play. Padula hands it over to Justin Mutz. Now back up top to David Gassan, who swings it over to Darius Maddox on the right wing. Maddox tries to get something going, over now to Hunter Couture straight away. 20 seconds to shoot, now over to Sean Padula, left wing. Tried to get a screen, won't get it, and we'll pull it back out with 15 seconds to shoot. Over now to Justin Mutz, who gets it over to David Gassan. Hand off Hunter Couture, drives in low. Now a no-look disc to David Gassan, who slams it home for 2. All tied up at 25. Cafaro top of the key with 17 seconds to shoot. Now over to Malachi Poindexter on the right wing, working on Darius Maddox. Over now to Beekman with 12 seconds to shoot. Gardner down low now with 10 seconds to shoot. Pump fakes, puts it up for 2 and rattles one home. Cavaliers once again retake the lead as Jaden Gardner is taking over. He's got 15 already here in Blacksburg, and the Hokies trail by 2 with 40 seconds to play. And Virginia will go into the locker room with a 29-25 lead here in Blacksburg. Now,
Mutz backing down Gardner, lays it up with the right hand, too short, offensive rebound poked up by Mutz, and he lays it off the glass and in. Strong drive by Justin Mutz, and he's got the first bucket of the second half for the Hokies. Gardner fading away, 15-footer, rattled off the rim, fell off the left side, rebound Storm Murphy. Crossing the timeline is Murphy, off the screen from Aluma, dish to the inside, Keve Aluma slams it down with authority, and Blacksburg is dynamite tonight. Is Kihei Clark, Clark at Murphy, from the top of the key, gives it off, Beekman left wing. Coming off the Shedrick screen, Beekman with the right hand, stuffs it home. And we are tied in Blacksburg. Beekman once again crossing midcourt on that vaunted VT logo if you're a Wahoo fan. Lob to the inside and the stuff home for Caden Shedrick. Aline, fancy dribbling, 10 seconds on the shot clock on the Carillion Clinic logo. Justin Mutz, baseline drive from the right side. This to Aluma, who soars into the night sky and slams it down. Hokies lead by 6. Tony Bennett wants to talk things over. Timeout Virginia. 2:16 left to go in the game. Hunter Couture thought about a 3, left wing. Justin Mutz inside now, left block, Keve Aluma. Here's Aluma from 15 feet away. Backing down Shedrick. Back to Aluma. Keve fades away from 15 and he rattles it home. Up and over Caden Shedrick. Hokies lead it by 8 as we approach a minute to go in the ball game. Beekman. Top of the key, guarded by Keve Aluma, crossing on Keve, lost his dribble momentarily. Beekman a drive, lays it up with the left hand. No, rebound is there. Naheem Aline tipped it to Hunter Couture, and they're going to run out the clock. Tony Bennett calls off the guard. Clock continues to wind. 3, 2, and 1. Virginia Tech has won 6 straight. And they're starting to make their case for the NCAA tournament. 62-53, the final score from Blacksburg.
Thank you to Carter Hill and Giovanni Heater for that call from the men's basketball win over Virginia. All right, here we go. Final 15-ish minutes. Colby, you've got some discussion here about the recent NFL coaching hires. Where is this list from?
Well, we have our hires in. We have some grades coming in from SB Nation, and they've just kind of given us a little blurb about each coach here. Around roughly, 9 hires so far that I have listed here, but there's a couple I want to get to. One that really stands out to me is a guy that we've seen before, actually a Super Bowl winning head coach, kind of had a falling out with the team that he used to be in. Doug Peterson to the Jaguars. SB Nation has this ranked at a B+. How do we feel about this move, especially coming off the heels of Urban Meyer?
Well, the thing with well, I mean, he's definitely better than Urban Meyer. Let's get that out of the way first. And I think a lot of people had the Urban Meyer hire as probably around a B to an A when that happened, because he was a name. I think the thing about Doug Peterson is that the situation he left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. I think it can work. Obviously, the question regarding Doug Peterson is, hey, how much of his success is attributed to Frank Reich? So if he is the real deal and if he can work with Lawrence, that's the thing. This hire will be judged on whether or not Trevor Lawrence, plays better, and whether or not Trevor Lawrence can actually play at all. I mean, that becomes a question. But if Doug Peterson can get more out of Trevor Lawrence than we saw this year, where he had like a span of 8 games where he threw 1 touchdown pass, you just got to get more out of him. This cannot fail. That's the one thing. It cannot fail, or else Trevor Lawrence is as good as done in the NFL. But no, I think it's higher than that. I think that what we saw in Philadelphia with him, I think that the front office, the roster around him just fell apart. I would give this personally like a B-. I think that he can be a really solid coach. I think that he's a good, solid, stable presence for what they need in Jacksonville.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. Frank Reich was obviously huge, a huge part of that Philadelphia success alongside Doug Peterson. It's going to be a lot of can Doug Peterson get it done without that original staff that he gathered together for his first head coaching job? I think this is a solid hire. This is actually one of my favorite hires of this window. I kind of have it around like a B or an A. It's really, 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 really good. He's someone that has obviously helped with the development of Carson Wentz. So let's see if he can do it again with Trevor Lawrence. As you said, the big thing is Lawrence. If Lawrence can thrive under Doug Peterson, then this is a success no matter where they go with him. And if he can't, then everything in Jacksonville is just kind of, everything's kind of went to a bad place. So.
All right. Well, unless Brian has something to add, we're gonna move on to the next one that I wanted to get to. Mike McDaniel to the Miami Dolphins. Obviously, the firing of Brian Flores came as a bit of a shock to some people. We later figured out a part of the reason why that was. But SB Nation has this ranked as an A. Mike McDaniel, the former offensive coordinator for the 49ers. A lot of talk about how he's being brought in to try and get the most out of Tua and try to get him to the next step in his game. How do we feel about this move going forward?
This one, again, I think that it's similar to the Doug Peterson thing, but flip it a little bit. How much of a product was Doug Peterson of his offensive coordinator? Compare that to how much of a product of Kyle Shanahan is Mike McDaniel. But I think overall, I think he's a more analytical thinker. Whenever he talks, he mentions analytics, how they approach the game with Shanahan. I'll be interested to see how they attack Tua's limitations. Are they going to be a team that throws the ball a lot, or are they going to try to mirror San Francisco and get a really good running game? I don't know if the roster around them it would entitle them to do either of those things at the moment. I think they have a lot of fixing to do. Next year will be crucial. I think, and look, there was one comment he made where he was talking about Tua and talking about the team as a whole, and from what I got from that, he does not have that much confidence in his quarterback. So unless we see Tua just take a massive leap in what would be year 3 for him, I think that this hire it'll take a little bit longer to judge, because I think they're ready to move off Tua after the season, unless McDaniel's able to get a lot more out of him.
I think it's a pretty solid hire. I think Kyle Shanahan has proven over the past couple of years that he's really, really good for offense and whatnot. And I think having McDaniel kind of helping run things there with him is just a very positive sign already. And yeah, I mean, this is all going to be about Tua, and it's all going to be seeing how McDaniel can translate what he has learned with his time in with Shanahan calling that offense and trying to translate that to his time in Miami. And then on top of that, I think, at least I think the biggest hope is that San Fran's been able to land some really, 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 really talented offensive players during Kyle Shanahan's tenure there. Whether that, not like Jimmy G or anything, but like, we all really like Trey Lance. We're looking at Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Elijah Mitchell last year, and some other pretty talented running backs. So I think it's just going to be a function of not only to a success, but can they have a good analysis of this draft? I think if they can pull up some good offensive names from this draft, then this is going to be pretty solid. I think it's a good hire. I personally don't have it as good as Peterson, but it's up there. It's definitely like a B.
Okay, moving on to I think this is probably going to be continuing along this sort of theme that we've established of head coaching hires needing to get more out of their quarterbacks to succeed, and that is even if this guy ends up staying. I'm heading to a bigger market. New York Giants hiring Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator from the Bills. Obviously, he had Josh Allen over there to work with. Do you think he can get the most out of Daniel Jones? And that's even if Daniel Jones ends up staying.
Run the back for me. What grade did they give it? Did they give them?
Oh, they gave it a B minus. I didn't say that. They gave the grade. I mean, they gave Brian Daboll hiring a B minus.
Well, that's the thing too. I mean, it's all about, okay, these guys that are getting hired, what are they a product of? Was Brian Daboll a product of Josh Allen? The Daniel Jones thing, I think it's done. I don't think you can get really any much more out of him. I think we've seen what he is, and he's not good. I don't think you can go into New York and ask Daniel Jones to run a Buffalo offense where they're throwing it 80% of the time, not really running it, and you can't ask him to do the quarterback runs that Josh Allen does. Even though he's mobile, he's not Josh Allen. He's just not. He just doesn't have that other gear in him. I don't think he has that part of his game in himself mentally. Like, I don't think he wants to run. I don't think that's a thing that he is willing to do. I think Brian Daboll could be a really good coach. Again, I think it just comes down to the roster will be bad. So this won't be judged on what he can get out of Daniel Jones. It's going to be judged out of what can he get out of the next guy. So B minus, yeah, I don't hate that. I think he's definitely one of the better offensive minds in the league. So I'll go with it. I'll rock with that grade. The Daniel Jones thing, though, I don't think this becomes part of the question.
I have this one lower as well. I think this is like a C range. And again, as kind of Dan said, this isn't anything about Brian Daboll. This is just more the sense of like where they hired when they needed it. So obviously Brian Flores was talked about with this, and this is one of the teams that he's suing. But I bring up Brian Flores in part because this is a thing where this offense is a mess. Saquon Barkley has been injury prone for most of his career. Daniel Jones is just not that good. Their offensive line is getting better, but still kind of and their receiving core is surprisingly underwhelming for the talent that they have. So I just feel like there's so many pieces on this offense that you're basically they're hiring Brian Daboll to be like, work your magic, fix it all, and that's just not how coaching works. I think Daboll could be really good, but Daniel Jones is certainly not the future of the position for him. I think it's going to be a one and done under Daboll. And I think on top of that, really where they should have focused was the strength of the team and the defense and continuing to build that. And if they would have brought in a defensive guy with a strong offensive coordinator, I would have been a lot more of a fan of who they hired. But it's just kind of like you're looking at a different way of it. And you're looking at Daboll, and Daboll can kind of do nothing but kind of put his hands up and be like, hey, I can't do anything with this year. This is going to be a mess, and we're going to have to live with it. So I think it could have been a better hire.
Right, I understand where you guys are coming from. Obviously, we're going to be seeing whether or not Daboll is a product of, Josh Allen. I, in retrospect, it is a little foolish to think that Daniel Jones will be staying. I mean, I didn't think that he was just going to immediately be thrown into this Bills offense where they're throwing it 80% of the time. But I was just wondering, hey, if Jones does end up staying, if the Giants think that they can, by some delusional way of thinking, they think that they can get more out of him, then could Daboll be that guy? And I do agree they might be asking too much of him in that regard. But I think that's right. Like C plus, B minus, that's kind of where I'd put the grade. Here's one that I actually want to look at right now. We've got, I know it's not one that I really highlighted, but I think it's one that would be interesting to discuss. The Vegas Raiders going with Josh McDaniels. They gave this one a D plus. Josh McDaniels obviously kind of failed as a head coach in Denver before, had many years working with the New England Patriots. seemed like he was going to be hired a few times, never really came to fruition, and now finally he gets another job with the Raiders. How are we feeling about this move? D plus the grade once again.
I'm surprised that he got hired in the first place. I honestly thought that at this point he was just going to be the heir apparent to Belichick. Whenever he hung it up, he would just get the New England job. That's not the case anymore. I think this grade is a little bit of, well, obviously it's a little bit of his past in Denver, like you said, but then it's a little bit of Patriot assistant PTSD. Patriot assistants have never worked. It's just a fact. So I think that there's a little bit of worry when it comes to that. Other than that, I think he can do really well with Derek Carr. Derek Carr is, honestly, I don't really like to throw around the term underrated because I think at some point you just kind of are what you are. So if people assess you a certain way, there's a reason for it. It's just how you've played. I think Derek Carr just is still a little overlooked. I think the fact that he's gone through that franchise is always in turmoil, and he's been consistently okay. He just asked for like a pretty decent quarterback deal. I think it was between 35 and 40 million. The fact that he's not asking for like number one quarterback money when the quarterback market is always, hey, I want the most money. Like I want to be paid more than this guy. I think that's very team friendly. So I think this McDaniels hire could work. Do I think it's an A? No. Do I think it's even a B? No. I think I'd probably go C+. I think D- is a little harsh because I think that to me means that this is guaranteed to fail. And again, it's a Patriots assistant. It could go poorly, but I don't see like to me a D- would mean, oh, they're going 4-13 and 5-12 and again, I get it. They're in a tough division, but I see no reason why they can't break out and make the playoffs here. Add a guy like Devontae Adams, and hey, that offense looks really, really good, and Josh McDaniels can become part of the credit for it. So I'll probably get that like a C+.
I'm around that CB range as well. Honestly, I think I'd rate higher than Dabble hiring when I'm thinking about it right now. I'd probably put it at B-. And the reason is I think this is his offense relatively similar to what he's had in New England most of the time. Other than having Cam Newton as a mobile quarterback, Tom Brady isn't necessarily the most mobile, and same thing as Mac Jones. And that's kind of what Derek Carr is. It's kind of the closest thing to what we have of quote unquote pocket passing quarterbacks as there really is in the NFL. But then even outside of that, if you take a look at the team, New England has been very fond of slot receivers throughout McDaniels' time there. And you have Hunter Renfrow, someone who was one of the most underrated receivers going into this year. And I do think it's fair to say it there. He's a very talented young receiver. And then even if you look at the running game, Josh Jacobs, I think, is not that far off a build for some of the other guys that McDaniels has used, like that being Sonny Michel and Damian Harris and LeGarrette Blount and whatnot. So I think that for the offensive side, it fits. Again, this is really just more of an is thing where Las Vegas's defense has been a mess for a little while now, and they have some solid pieces, but I would have liked them to get a guy that could have really fixed the defense. But hey, I actually think that this offense fits for McDaniels, and I think that he can come in and kind of maintain the offensive success at minimum. It's just going to be how he can develop the team from there. So I think fit-wise it works, and let's see if he can pull some good names.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. Just a little closing statement on this, considering that I think this is going to be the last one we have time to really cover, the McDaniels one. I do think D+ is a little harsh, just because I'm using the SB Nation article doesn't mean I necessarily agree with everything it says. This is just the grade that they give him. I think it's absolutely an interesting hire. You have a guy who obviously probably learned some things from his time in Denver, marinated for a few years under Bill Belichick, and now he's getting a second chance with this established team that made the playoffs. They showed strides this year. Derek Carr is a good quarterback. Obviously some holes on the roster, but you can fix those sorts of things with better drafting, of course. But honestly, the criticisms they give him are a little superficial, in my opinion. They kind of criticize him for being this big, flashy move that the Raiders tend to make, and how the Raiders' flashy moves tend to come back to bite him in the butt. But I think that's pretty superficial. Just calling him this flashy pick and criticizing him for being one of those is kind of taking away from the fact that he is a guy who has had some form of success in the league.
All right, Colby, thank you very much for that. Thank you guys for listening to us here on a Wednesday. We'll see you tomorrow. Colby, and Brian, thank you guys for joining me here today. Ryan Wilkes will be back tomorrow as well. Stay safe, everyone. Take care. Thank you for listening.